Foundations of Language and Literacy. We're going to begin this lesson with a look at some of the recent events in educational policy that have had a significant effect on how we teach young children. Then I want to share part of a picture book with you in a way that will, I hope, help you understand the constructivist learning theory. Significant educational changes began in the 1980s, back when the National Commission on Excellence in Education published A Nation at Risk, the Imperative for Educational Reform. Basically, one of the greatest concerns that was identified was the need to narrow the achievement gap between groups of students in the United States, most specifically between the lower socioeconomic and minority groups and the upper to middle class socioeconomic groups and those who were predominantly Caucasian. Narrowing that achievement gap continued to be a priority at the Education Summit in 1989 that ultimately led to Goals 2000, a move to reform the American educational system by the time we ushered in a new century. Providing all children with an equal education took a new trajectory when the International Reading Association, IRA, and the National Association for the Education of Young Children, NAEYC, developed a joint position statement based on the theory that we could narrow that achievement gap if we provided direct instruction to young children as they entered preschool. Well, that seminal publication led to the reauthorization of the Head Start Act of 1999. This act refocused the early childhood curriculum to look more at emergent literacy skills, that is, reading and writing via introduction of letters and sounds at a very young age, more like 3 and 4 instead of waiting until kindergarten. In the year 2000, the National Reading Panel was commissioned to examine current research to identify exactly what were the components or skills of literacy instruction that made a significant difference to children learning how to read. 5 pillars of effective literacy instruction emerged. The first was phonemic awareness, followed by phonics instruction, then fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. The National Reading Panel's report was the basis of the No Child Left Behind Act, which President Bush signed into effect in 2001. The premise was that using scientifically based reading research, or SBBR, would help every child learn how to read by the 3rd grade. No Child Left Behind steered the reform movement towards an intensified focus on accountability for student achievement at the school and the district level. Good Start, Grow Smart followed 1 year later. That movement was based on the idea that families needed support to help them get their children off to a good start, to help them be ready to succeed in school. That kind of thinking, that support in the early childhood years is more effective than waiting until children are in junior high or high school, remains paramount in the current calls for educational reform. President Obama signed into law the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009, ARRA. The ARRA provided $4.35 billion for race-to-the-top competitive grants, and cash-strapped states like Arizona took note. Race to the Top added a new dimension to the dialogue on educational reform by requiring districts to have sophisticated, standards-based evaluation systems, and further required that student achievement outcomes be included as an evaluation component for each teacher. Adopting the Common Core state standards appears to be the next of the ever-changing educational scene. The Common Core mission statement is to provide a consistent, clear understanding of what students are expected to learn, so teachers and parents know what they need to do to help them. The standards are designed to be robust and relevant to the real world, reflecting the knowledge and skills that our young people need for success in college and careers. With American students fully prepared for the future, our communities will be best positioned to compete successfully in the global economy. The basis of this course respects both an emergent literacy perspective and the scientifically based reading research approach to early literacy as proposed by the National Reading Panel report. But rather than limit instruction in early literacy to one approach or the other, we believe that we should help each child have access to every tool to enable him or her to learn how to read and become a lifelong learner. We believe that children learn best in a print-rich environment with storybook reading, with shared reading and writing, with projects and thematic units. They also need opportunities to be able to engage in meaningful reading and writing activities with developmentally appropriate activities that promote learning. At the same time, there needs to be explicit instruction within this supportive environment. There needs to be direct instruction in oral language and vocabulary development. That phonemic awareness instruction should support alphabet knowledge and concepts about print, and that all children need opportunities to practice these skills in meaningful and purposeful ways. Using a blended approach will help all children learn all they need. We believe that if children are not learning the way we teach, we need to teach the way they learn. Underlying these beliefs is a deep appreciation and respect for constructivist learning theory. We believe that all children engage in a constant learning process. They use what they already know to interpret new experiences and hold these new ideas up to their understanding of how things work, and they make it fit in they make those new ideas fit into what they already know. Piaget calls this organizing a mental structure called a schema. Through extended social interactions with the people in their lives, children come to develop an understanding of the way things work in their world. Leo Leone, one of my very favorite children's authors and illustrators, illustrates the constructivist learning theory exceptionally well in this picture book for children I'm going to share with you. It's called Fish is Fish. Once upon a time, there were two good friends, Tadpole and Fish. They had a good time playing together, and they wondered often about the shadows in the pool above them. What is going on out there, they wondered. One day a miracle happened. Tadpole grew legs. He climbed out of the pond with those legs and promised Fish that he would go and explore the great world beyond the pond, come back, and tell him about all the things he saw. Well, Fish waited for a long time. Then one day, Frog did come back and told wonderful tales of what he had seen above the pond. There were creatures with 4 legs, spots, tails, and even horns and udders. As Fish imagined these wondrous things, he interpreted them from all he knew. All he knew were fish, and he tried to make sense of what Tadpole was saying from his very fishy point of view. This is what we all do. We interpret the world based on our prior knowledge. For young children, their frame of references is as limited as that of fishes. They interpret the way things work based on what they already know. most of this information comes from what they have lived in their own homes. And here is the reference for Leo Leone's wonderful story of Fish is Fish.